Good morning or good afternoon. This is the Digital Citizenship Group Project addressing the issue of impact of emergency online teaching on the digital divide. This is for ED505, Spring 2, University of West Alabama. Group members who participated in this assignment are Daniel Collins, Malik Sr., Tiffany Wilkinson, and Anessa Hamilton. The issue that we chose is the impact of emergency online teaching on the digital divide. Emergency online teaching implemented rapidly during the COVID-19 pandemic, widening the digital divide, revealing deep inequities in access to technology, reliable internet, and digital literacy. While online learning was necessary for public health, it created a disadvantage for students from low-income, rural, and marginalized communities. When considering this issue, there's a few things we want to think about. One of those is the access to devices and internet. Millions of students lacked access to laptops, tablets, or high-speed internet when needed for synchronous learning. Another thing to consider is the inequity to learning environments. Students in under-resourced communities often lacked quiet, safe, and supportive home environments for learning. Some had to rely on public Wi-Fi in parking lots or community centers to attend class. A few more things to consider when we think about the issue is digital literacy disparities. Not all students and not all teachers had the skills to navigate the virtual learning platforms. This was a sudden change that happened back during the pandemic, and so not everyone was quite prepared for having to shift to online learning. Students with limited tech or English as a second language were further disadvantaged. One more thing to consider within this issue is long-term educational consequences. The shift to emergency online teaching led to learning loss, especially in math and reading, most significantly affecting students in low-income schools.
What resources did teachers receive from the administration and technology department to help students trying to access and participate in online learning? How were lesson plans and assessments modified to accommodate students with limited access to connectivity?
Challenges. When the COVID pandemic hit in the United States, schools faced many challenges. Two of the biggest were access to technology and access to education and supports. Access to technology. When the pandemic hit in the U.S., a lot of rural communities began to wonder how this would affect our most vulnerable students. Would our students have access to a laptop, computer, tablet, or cell phone to be able to access a digital curriculum? And if they did have access to a device, would they have access to a reliable internet source? This unequal access is known as the digital divide. Schools in our district sent home questionnaires and surveys to every family to request this information so that accommodations could be made to assist students, whether through mobile hotspot vouchers, providing Chromebooks to students, or providing work packets to students. Administrations also had to consider how work packets would be distributed to students and returned back to the schools for grading. In 2018, it was estimated that 92% of households had access to at least one computer and 85% had access to an internet source. However, computer ownership and internet subscriptions were lowest among households who identified as Black and households where at least one member had a disability. Having access to a computer or to an internet subscription did not mean that their service was reliable or that the device that they were using was more than a cell phone. It is nearly impossible to do quality work on a cellular device, especially as a small child. And if your cell service was spotty or there were dead zones, then it would be next to impossible to get work done reliably. Accessing technology also includes being able to use the technology you were provided. Younger students, students with special needs, and students from low-income households would not have the same access to technology and therefore would not have the knowledge for how to use newer software systems and apps. Because there was so little time to prepare for online digital schooling, there was no way to prepare younger students or students with special needs on how to access things like Google Classroom or how to use apps like Kami to do digital worksheets. Most students had very limited proficiency with technology before the pandemic, especially in lower income communities. Most schools at that time resorted to paper copies or worksheet packets for those students, which again led to questions about how to get the work to the students and how to get it back. Not to mention, there was no access to a qualified teacher to instruct the student and how to do the activities in the worksheets, leaving a lot of students behind academically. Access to education and supports. The pandemic affected our most vulnerable students throughout the country: younger students, students from low-income households, and students with disabilities. These students would have had less access to technology and the internet and would have relied solely on work packets from the school. This would have also limited their exposure to quality teachers who could have explicitly taught the material and relied heavily on parents to teach the content. One problem with this would have been that their parents may have limited knowledge or skill sets to teach the material the students were provided. For students with IEPs, they would have limited to no access for the services that their IEPs were supposed to provide for them. Students are provided with IEPs or individual education plans for a variety of reasons. When the sudden impact of the pandemic, a lot of services for those students came to an abrupt stop. Services include speech services, behavior supports, physical therapy, occupational therapy, as well as academic supports. For students in self-contained classrooms, this was a complete disruption to their routines and way of life. A lot of families depended on the services that were provided in the school environment. Without access to these hands-on services, a lot of students were severely impacted and had even harder time keeping up with the educational demands and led to poor academic outcomes. The sudden switch to digital learning also created a stressful environment for teachers. While many teachers already had access to technology, they were not always trained on how to engage their learners virtually or given adequate pedagogical support and resources for teaching online. Teachers also had limited support from parents, which was vital for student success in this digital world, as teachers no longer had access to their students without parents. When teachers were able to hold classes online, a lot of time was spent troubleshooting technology issues. All of these stressors led to teacher burnout, with a lot of teachers refusing to come back after the pandemic and causing teacher shortages everywhere.
Opportunities. Emergency online teaching has brought about significant challenges, but it has also created opportunities to address the digital divide. These are two opportunities dealing with emergency online teaching. The expansion of digital literacy programs. The emergency online teaching has highlighted the need for digital literacy among students and educators. This has led to initiatives aimed at improving digital skills, ensuring that individuals can effectively use technology for learning and communication. For example, some institutions have implemented training programs to help educators adapt to online teaching platforms. The expansion of digital literacy programs is a key opportunity presented by emergency online teaching. One example is the initiative undertaken by organizations like UNESCO, which has launched projects to enhance the digital competencies of educators worldwide. These programs focus on equipping teachers with the skills needed to effectively use technology in their teaching, bridging the gap between traditional and online education. Additionally, schools and institutions have started offering workshops and courses to help students develop essential digital skills. For instance, programs like Code.org's virtual classes have become more prominent, encouraging young learners to engage with coding and other tech-related disciplines. The development of infrastructure. The shift to online education has accelerated efforts to improve internet access and provide devices to undeserved communities. Governments and organizations have invested in expanding broadband connectivity and distributing laptops or tablets to students in need. The development of infrastructure has been a pivotal opportunity arising from emergency online teaching. For instance, the Biden-Harris administration's Internet for All initiative has allocated $65 billion to expand broadband connectivity across the United States, ensuring undeserved communities gain access to affordable, high-speed internet. Programs like the Broadband Equity, Access and Deployment Initiative have been instrumental in funding infrastructure projects. Additionally, organizations such as Bridging Tech and Everyone On have stepped up to provide devices like laptops and tablets to students in need, helping bridge the digital divide. These efforts not only support immediate educational needs, but also lay the groundwork for long-term digital equity. These opportunities not only address immediate needs, but also contribute to long-term solutions for reducing the digital divide.
So now we're thinking about resolving the issue, some things that we can do to fix this and solve this. The first thing would be to ensure universal access to devices and high-speed internet. And what that means is schools and districts needing to work together with the government and private sector partners to provide every student with a device, such as a Chromebook or tablet, and subsidize or free broadband internet access, especially in the low income and rural areas. Another way that we could resolve this issue is to invest in digital literacy training for students, families, and educators. And what that means is providing devices isn't quite enough. Students, parents, and teachers need training in digital skills. Schools need to offer ongoing tech support, tutorials, and resources to build digital literacy, including how to navigate learning platforms, protect privacy, and communicate efficiently online. Thank you for your time and have a great day.